Hello and welcome. Today's tutorial is going to be a viola. It's a photograph that I took from the garden yesterday and I really like the nice bright yellow and the violet on this. So to begin with, I'm just mixing some Brusho with some water in my palette to get the colours ready, and I've listed all the colours there for you on the screen. And I actually find with the Brusho that the violet and the purple aren't particularly nice colours. They're a little bit flat, so I decided to make my own violet from blue and red. But still, it wasn't the best colour at the end. I did come back and put some highlights on with the crayons and things, but I don't think the camera shows it actually to its best advantage. The petals at the end, you can see a lot more light and colour through them to the naked eye. Some of the red is separated out from the blues and get those nice pinky tinges that we can see on the end of the petal in the photograph. If I was to do it again, that violet that I made, I would add more water to it and have it not just as thick. So that's one tip if you're wanting to do this. I will put a link in the description below to the reference photograph. Like I say, it's one from my own garden that I've just taken, but I'm sure plenty of you've got your own violas that you could even just snip one off and pop it in a glass in front of you to do it from that as well. So not doing too many different colours, just the blues and yellows of the viola, and then with a little bit of extra green in the background. So to begin with, I wet the background area after I'd done the drawing. I should have mentioned the drawing first. So with the drawing, I always start off with a flower drawing, doing a big circle or oval or ellipse of the shape of the whole flower, just to get the space that it's in and the size. And then you'll see I made a line where the centre of the flower came to and put that little centre spot in, which I did actually overwork at the end of the video, I'm afraid, but I got some of that back with a crayon as well. So I did a very rough, loose picture with the pencil, getting each petal in and the shapes of each petal, and looking at the edges of the petals where you get these little nice sharp edges to the violas and the pansies. It's quite characteristic of them, so try and get those little curls and things in that you get with the pansies and violas. And then after I'd done that drawing, I rubbed out the initial guideline of that big circle that I'd done to begin with. So I began by putting the water just behind the flower, so the flower remained completely dry, and I just did the background, then dropped the colours in quite randomly from the colours that I'd made up. I didn't put any black in the background, just the green and the colours of the flower. Then I allowed them to merge into each other on the paper and left them to dry. Now with watercolours, I often use a hairdryer, especially when I'm doing tutorials and things, and when we're doing classes and we've got times of the essence and we haven't got all day to leave things to dry, we often use the hairdryer, and I'm sure you do too at home. But I don't do that with Brushos because they need to merge on the page. The colours need to merge into each other, and especially when you sprinkle it in, it needs time to sort of go out into the paper. And with this paper, because it's quite an absorbent paper, it moves quite a bit. So I should have said that the paper that I'm using is a watercolour Fabriano paper that I did a review of a couple of weeks ago. If you didn't see that review, I'll put the link to that in the corner. It's a cotton, 25% cotton, so I'm just reading it here, and it's £140, and it's only a small pad. It's 7" by 9", but it's quite a nice size for doing something like this, and it's an image that you could maybe make into a card or greetings card, something like that. So it's a good size little pad, and like I said, quite an absorbent paper. You'll notice I put clips on the paper as well to keep it down when I'm going to put the water on it. It's always a good idea to have it fastened down. You could also use masking tape around the corners as well. So after you've allowed the background to dry, you don't really go too much back into the background until later on. You'll notice that I do, because I want to get some contrast. So where the petal's very light, I put a dark background against it. Where the petal's dark, you want a light background against it. So you might alter your background to make a better composition, so you've got lights against darks, so you've got some nice contrast to make your flower stand out more. When it comes to actually painting the flower itself, you'll see I wet each petal before I put the paint in, the Brusho should I say. And again, allow the colours to merge into each other, leave them to dry, and then put another layer on. When you're doing flowers, it's a good idea to paint alternate petals so that one can be drying while you go on to the next one, and then when you come back to it, the petals aren't bleeding into each other. So basically that's it, just building up the petals, allowing them to dry in between layers and putting a bit more shadow and definition in. I know there isn't a lot of orange in that flower, and I did use some orange, but I used the orange to get some of those shadows really, and some of the shape of the petal itself. So it's mainly just lemon on the body of the flower, and then I use the black to put the lines in where those little markings are. And then at the end, the pencils are really handy just to sharpen up some lines if you feel that the lines need to be a bit crisper. Maybe get a bit more shadow in if you've missed it being dark somewhere, and maybe add in highlights where you've lost highlights. I've got a white crayon that's, I think it's from Crayola. It's just, I have a tin, you've probably seen it before, with all sorts of different crayons in that I've sort of acquired over the years, some of the old ones from the kids that they had at school and this kind of thing. And in there is this white Crayola one, and it's quite soft, so you can blend it into over the top of watercolours and Brushos and things, just to get a little bit of highlight back, but it also still shows the colour through because it's so soft. So that's a nice pencil to have. But anything like that, and of course you could come in with some white acrylic, white ink tints as well, to get those highlights back if you've lost them. So I don't think there's too much more I can tell you about doing this little painting. Quite straightforward. Like I say, I'll put the photograph in the reference below, and the main thing is getting the drawing right to begin with really. So just take your time looking at where those petals are, especially the bottom half of the flower. It's difficult to see where those middle petals are separated from the one that's in the foreground. Okay, so I hope you enjoy the rest of the video. If you've got any questions about it, something that I've forgotten to tell you, if you want to put those in the comments below, and I'll hopefully speak to you again soon. Bye for now, and thank you for watching.
durch des Himmels prächtigen Land laufen grüne